Parents, what is the weirdest thing you have found in your kid's bedroom? Many years ago. Mom, oh, you've got your microscope set up. Lemme see what you've got under there. Me, nothing. It's just tap water. There's nothing in it. Visibly gone white and shaking. Mom wrenches me aside, looks through eyepiece, ref accuses, is visibly startled for a moment. Oh, for Pete's sake, Decapot. Oh, gross. I so did not need to see that. Well, at least we know you're not sterile, I guess. My mom once found my fish tank full of fish in my closet. I wasn't allowed to have fish. Fuck throwaways. Friend and I discovered my mom's vibrator while looting her drawers for candy and money when I was 10. Didn't really understand what it was, so I stole it to inspect later and put it in one of my junk drawers. Promptly forgot about it, and mom never said anything about her missing sex toy. Couple years later, I discovered my sexuality and also that vibrator. Used it, had my first orgasm with it, and many followed. She found it when I was 14 while looking for the phone. I was fucking mortified, as I should have been. And now, looking back on it, I'm purely disgusted with myself. TL. Doctor shared a sex toy with my mother. It was big and red, and at some point it deflated. This is about someone who rented a room in my house. She was so immature, she was practically my kid. My boyfriend and I rented a house, and it had an extra bedroom, so we posted an ad on Craigslist and a girl, let's call her S, replied. She had just turned 18 and was going to college 2 minutes away from the house. She seemed like a nice girl at first. Quiet, tiny, I mean like 70 pounds tiny, and didn't mind helping out around the house. A couple weeks after she moved in, we noticed weird food items were missing. Not frozen pizzas or bread or anything, it was more like whole jars of mayo and sliced American cheese. We asked her about it, and she denied she took anything. When the semester was up, she moved out, and we started cleaning out her room and bathroom. When we opened the bathroom closet, this disgusting smell hit us. On the wall behind the top shelf, there were literally thousands of balls of paper towel with chewed and half digested food inside. She would eat a jar of mayo, throw it up into this bucket we found in her bedroom closet, and make vomit snowballs, which she tossed into the closet. It took hours to scrape it all off. Absolutely disgusting. TL. Doctor, vomit snowballs. Eck. My mom found a locked briefcase in my brother's room. She was convinced there was drugs in it, so she panicked, broke the locks and opened it. She found porn and fireworks. She was pretty embarrassed. When my husband was little, talking 5 or 6 years old, his mother couldn't figure out why his room had been getting smellier and smellier over the previous 2 weeks. She finally did some searching and found a nest in the back of his closet. He had taken 2 eggs out of the fridge, put them in a little nest he made out of his shirts, and put a plastic dinosaur on top of the eggs to attempt to hatch baby dinosaurs. In his little kid mind, this seemed like a perfectly logical idea. Most awkward moment in my life right here. I was like 18, and I took a shower before going to a 311 concert. I had recently purchased a synthetic vagina, which was pretty fing sweet at the time. Well, I took it in the shower with me and did my business. Got out of the shower, got dressed and got in my buddy's car to go to the show. Halfway there I realize that I left this big fake vagina in the family shower and that I wouldn't be home till morning. When I got home the next morning, I slowly made the walk of shame to the bathroom to see that sure enough my partner in crime was no longer where I had left it. I go into my room and it is wrapped in a plastic bag sitting on my desk with a note saying, "You're lucky your mother didn't find this. My dad hasn't mentioned it since." TL. Doctor, my dad found my fake vagina and returned it in a plastic bag. My $2500+ gaming system and desk, which was on a different floor in the house entirely. Just walked in from work one day and noticed it missing. Was about to freak out when I saw that my 10-year-old and almost 16-year-old had moved it and the entire contents up to their room. Thought about it for a few moments, not even upset, when I noticed how much more room it gave me downstairs, and hatched a plan. When he turned 16 a week later, I said, "Happy birthday." It's yours now. And purchased him $100 worth of games on Steam to rock the system with. Now I'm planning a nice gaming laptop for myself. A friend in high school made a homemade penis pump out of some tubing, a plastic tube and some other parts. His mom was cleaning his room one time and found it. She freaked out and was holding it in his face when he got home that day, screaming, "Is this drugs? Is this drugs?" He denied it was drugs and said it was just some junk he was messing with. My mother went through my room and found the guide to getting it on. The thickest sex manual ever. Tips on everything. I was 13. I bought it with a friend, we were just curious. When confronted I blamed my friend and after that my mom never approved of me hanging out with her. Recently I found a green piece of folded paper on the floor of my 11-year-old daughter's room. I opened it and the only thing written on it was Chuck Norris. Not a parent, but I once found a naked Barbie, bound and gagged, in a shoebox under my 9-year-old sister's bed. The shoebox had a window cut out with rubber band bars and was lined with blankets. My sister is 17 now, and no, I've never asked her about it. A girl I knew told me that when she was 12 she made a dildo out of a ping pong ball superglued to the end of a marker. I have no idea. Her dad flipped out when he found it and threw it away. She was so upset she threatened to go on Oprah and tell her and the world that he ruined her life. I'm not a parent, I'm the babysitter, but one time I watched a 6-year-old Jewish girl who was really upset about not celebrating Christmas. Her parents were really orthodox and didn't let her sing Christmas carols or even eat candy canes. As I tucked her in, she showed me a little gingerbread house she made out of saltine crackers, Skittles, and peanut butter. Cutest thing I ever saw, and I never told her parents as she would have gotten in trouble, but she was something special. My mom, as a joke, when I was 15 grabbed a bunch of condoms/lube packets from an AIDS prevention table at a concert and put them in my purse. We laughed. I get home too and was curious about the edible strawberry lube, so I opened it up, smelled it, and threw it away without a second thought. Come home from school and my dad is home. Weird, I thought. I walk in and he is shaking holding the wrapper. He had googled the brand to figure out what it was. He is scared and panicking. I tell him mom gave it to me as a joke. Call her. Luckily she saved me. My poor dad has never looked more relieved. Not my kid, but my friend was babysitting his brother, about 10 at the time, and heard him talking to someone upstairs. He goes up to investigate and asks who he was talking to, and he immediately runs to the closet door and stands in front of it going, "No one. No one is here. Go away." Open the closet door to find another 10-year-old boy in nothing but his underwear hiding under stuffed animals. So much what the fuck. Okay, so here's the full story. We don't know. I was there at the time it happened, and we think, while we were out back smoking, he brought him in. When he found him he yelled, "What the fuck?" His brother was crying at this point because he thought he was in serious trouble, and me and our other friend came running up the stairs and just kind of stared slack-jawed at what was happening. The other kid got dressed really quickly and just bolted out of the house. Weird thing was we never found out his name or where the hell he was from. He wasn't one of his normal friends, and we never saw him again. We could never coax the story out of him about what was happening either, but we suspect it was more harmless than our 17-year-old minds imagined it to be. Believe me, to this day I still have tons of questions about what happened. I think he told his mom, but she was a terrible parent, so she just kind of laughed about it and didn't really question him. I found a chunk of brown sugar the size of my fist under my 4-year-old's bed. My daughter likes to sneak candy or cookies into her room when my wife and I aren't looking, but this was a first. I recently had to move back in with my parents because I couldn't afford university and accommodation of my own at the same time. Before I moved back, I had a pretty active sex life with people of both genders, and I've been out to everyone for years, except my parents. My dad's a pretty conservative Scotsman, and my mum was brought up in India with a whole different set of acceptable societal norms. Anywho's, my mum regards herself as having the right to rifle through my stuff under the pretense of cleaning. One day, I was sitting working in my room with her cleaning. I'd pretty much just accepted she was going to do this regardless of what I said by this point, when I hear her ask, "What's this?" I turned round to find her holding one of my prostate massagers, clearly with no clue what it was. Now, I'm an open person, and I especially like being a bit too open with my parents, as their reactions, as people of a conservative nature, are often pretty funny. However, I knew that admitting to having an object that I regularly stick up my butt for pleasure would spark the "ol are you gay" argument, which would lead to the inevitable "are gays of any value to society" argument. So, I blatantly lied and told her it was a sculpture I'd picked up abroad. She seemed happy with this and polished it with a cloth and some pledge. Honestly, I think I'd have been less embarrassed if it was a fleshlight or something. Not a parent, but a nanny. I found a stash of dresses and makeup under a 5-year-old boy's bed. He had raided a box of old clothes that their mother was donating and took his sister's dresses that fit him. He found the correct sizes for his age and everything. He said he used it to be a sassy girl. Not a parent, but once I went into my sister's room for Sprite and ended up finding her fun from the night before. She had snuck a very large black man in her room. She was nowhere to be found. Just me, a very small girl, and a huge man. No Sprite. Yes, this is a type of comment that deserves a throwaway. When I was younger, around 2 or 3 years old, I had an irrational fear of my mom getting upset when I'd soil my underwear. Plus, I didn't want to go back to diapers. So what did I do? Every time I'd shit myself, I'd dispose of my undies into the corner of my closet and close the door behind me. I had no idea what was going through my infantile mind, but it was a good idea at the time. It grew into a rather large, horrifying mound. You can imagine the horror on my mother's face the day she smelled something and followed that trail to the closet. I watched as she cried. Probably a bit late to the show, but here is my story. Throwaway for reasons. While cleaning my daughter's room, my wife found a dildo. No big deal, right? But this dildo looked familiar. This dildo was my wife's. Okay, that is not a huge deal, a little weird, but we can move on. Or can we? My wife only has one dildo. This dildo was a requested present to her from me. She wanted this specific one because I go away on work trips for 3 to 6 months at a time on occasion. This dildo is from a mold of my own penis. That is right, I said my daughter had taken my wife's dildo that is molded to be my penis. TL. Doctor, my daughter stuck my penis mold inside of her. This will probably get lost under the endless comments here, but it's a funny story anyway. Also, it wasn't a parent that found this. I went to summer camp here in my home country of Switzerland. It was held at a boarding school, so we basically stayed in dorms. Anyway, they would take us to the city for the weekend to do a bit of shopping and hang out. One weekend I didn't go, but my Greek friend did. While hanging out with some girls, I'm a guy, my friend returns with his backpack and beckons me away from them. We walk a short distance away, and with his back turned towards the girls, he unzips the backpack and pulls out the most massive black dildo one could imagine. Being 13, this was basically the funniest and most random thing he could have shown me. Okay, so about a week later there was some theft that went down in the building we stayed in. Naturally, the director of the camp came and searched everybody's rooms. Fortunately for me, I just happened to be in my friend's room while they were conducting the search. I also knew that he kept the dildo in his medicine cabinet in the bathroom. Don't ask me why he did this. After searching most of the room, he goes to the bathroom. Standing behind him, I watch him open the medicine cabinet, and along with a few porn mags is the 12-inch dildo standing in straight up, practically laughing along with me at how ridiculous the whole situation was. The director pauses for a secretary at the otherwise empty cabinet and shuts it. The only thing he says after this is, "Nothing here, I see. Thanks," and then he leaves. This still leaves me in stitches thinking about it. I'm not a parent, but I used to work at a state mental hospital with teenage boys. One of the boys was obsessed with a guy that worked there and stole one of his shoes, took it into his room and raped it. I caught him in the act. I'm the kid here, but when I was 12 my mom found a showbox full of blood-soaked socks under my bed. I'd gotten my period and was too embarrassed to ask what to do, so I just, Socks. I don't know what she thought it was, but the fact that she was relieved when she learned she was holding a show box full of menstrual blood and ruined peds is probably telling. My dad works in the paper business. While growing up, he would always bring home giant pieces of paper for me and my brothers to illustrate/scribble on. The last time I can ever remember drawing on any of the said paper, I was in middle school. It was a blueprint-sized piece of paper, and I spent days on the most elaborate naked blonde woman, sitting totally spread eagle, using her fingers to spread herself even more open. It was a ridiculous illustration that I used colored pencils and crayons to make look as real as possible. I even signed it in the corner like a real artist would. I kept it rolled up and hidden in my closet, which was a complete mess. While on the way home from a summer camp later that year, my parents told me that they cleaned out my closet for me. I'm 31 years old now, and when I think about it, there is absolutely no way that they didn't unroll it to see what it was before they threw it away. They have never mentioned it, and I will probably never ask them about it. My parents were a bit confused when they looked in my closet, found an anatomically correct wooden arm with metal bracket joints and elastic to move the individual fingers. I took make an anatomical model of the arm a bit too literally in my 6th grade science class and felt really dumb holding a working wooden arm in class when everyone else had drawings. I was hiding it because I used the power tools without permission. My parents were pretty cool about it after I explained why I had wooden body parts in the closet and let me to go an engineering tech school part-time alongside high school a few years later. My 19-year-old daughter came home for college break. One morning she was out of the house and I went into her room to gather towels for the laundry. Her laptop was on the dresser next to her bed, and on the screen was a hardcore bondage porn. Paused. On the floor next to her bed I saw 3 vibrators, a dildo, a jar of Vaseline, and 3 Gatorade bottles full of a yellowish liquid I could only assume was urine. All of which were sitting in the middle of a large wet spot in the carpet, which I had stepped in and had soaked through my sock. I slowly backed out of the room without the towels and never spoke a word of it to anyone until today. I will admit, it is now sometimes difficult to keep a straight face when she's acting goody two shoes. I'm the child in this situation, but I'll share anyway. My mother decided to clean my room while I was away in college. The night before I went back my girlfriend had stayed over. My mother cleaned and picked up a tub of Kai jelly, an empty condom box and a cock ring, and put them away in my wardrobe. I didn't notice until I was home a few weeks later and looking for my stuff, and it was all neatly stacked. What made it more awkward was I brought a few more cock rings to college that weekend. Upon returning again my mother decided to be nice and do my laundry for me. Great. She took everything out of my suitcase, except 2 cock rings, and left them there, in an open suitcase, in the kitchen of all places. It wasn't that awkward at first, but anytime she mentioned my laundry she sighed, and let on as if she was disappointed. Or maybe she didn't really give a shit and she just wanted to make me feel awkward. Either way I try and be a little more cautious lately of what I leave lying around, because she's a neat freak and most certainly doesn't want to be dealing with cock rings that his son has used.